Great. So for this evening's talk, a lot of times I've noticed that I announce the talk I'm going to give, and then some people leave. They think, no, I don't fancy that. So tonight I'm not going to let you know. So if you leave now, it might be a really great talk, so you have to stay inside. It's a mystery of what we're going to talk about. But to start off with, some of you don't know what we get up to during the week, or what I get up to. You see me here on Friday night, Saturday, doing the meditation and the lunch, and the Sunday, especially this weekend, a very busy weekend with our celebrations for Wesak. But during the weekdays, it's still really busy. 7 days a week job. And one of the things we were doing yesterday, which I'm sure many of you will be interested in, and was the reason, which you'll find out later on where this talk comes from, is once a year we always meet up with the monks from New Norcia, the Benedictines. And we're really, really good friends. And one of the reasons I do this is not just to show that we can get on together, which is an amazing thing to see that people of different religions can respect one another and actually develop some great friendships, but also that one thing which I was very careful of when I first became a Buddhist was to make sure that I don't cut off my connections with people of other religions or no religions. Because I saw other people get very narrow-minded, and I never wanted that to happen to myself. So I always exposed myself to, I don't really mean exposing myself, that's against the law, but to open myself up to people of different faiths and ideas. And that interaction I found is very wonderful to keep me from getting dogmatic, but also to get great new ideas, new perspectives. If you're just always with the people of your own ideas and faiths and philosophies, you can just not see the other side. And so it was a wonderful time we have, and just these are really good friends. I've known these people over 30 years now. It's marvelous to get some feedback and see the differences we have and also the commonalities we have. But one of the things we were talking about at this meeting was the idea of, and I'm giving away the subject of tonight's talk now, of ultimate reality. So tonight's talk is on ultimate reality. Are you interested? Really? Because first of all, I don't believe in ultimate reality. There's a lot of problems even just with those words. The first word is ultimate. Why do we always have to make these words which are so extreme? Ultimate means the end, there's nothing past it, it's for finality. And to me, reality, truth, is never ultimate. Why do we always have these words of hierarchies? Even with monks. Some of you who've hung around the monks for long enough now know that in our tradition, once you are 10 years as a monk, they give you a name to recognize the years you spent as a monk. It's called terror. It's so close to the word terror that you're a terror monk after 10 years. We don't usually use it. But after 20 years, you've got to get some promotion. So it's called Maha Terror. Maha means big. And so people will say, what happens afterwards? What about 30 years? And so, mega terror. What about 40 years? I'm 42 years now as a monk. So 42 is, what's up after mega? Giga. And I like that because it's so close to giggle terror. So I'm a giggle terror. Giga terror. But what's the next one up after that? After 50 years as a monk, it's another 8 years' time, 7.5 years' time, then it's a terror. Like in terabytes. But do you know what terror actually means? I looked it up in the dictionary before I came in here. I actually did some research, not very much, but terror comes from the Greek word terrors means monster. That's what terabyte means, a monster bite. So after another 8-7 years, I'll be a monster of a monk. But why do we have that? And even just, I get a bit upset sometimes. I think, what are we doing this for? When I go to international conferences, which I do these days, and they tell you that, you are a venerable. And sometimes I thought, I'm not old enough to be a venerable. Venerable means you have to be old. And then apparently, when you get to 40 years as a monk, in the Vietnamese tradition, then they call you most venerable. And I thought, if it's most, it's one of those ultimates. You can't get any more than most venerable. But then I saw that some monks who'd been even much longer than 40 years, they were called very most venerable, and then extremely most venerable, and then ultimately most venerable. And I thought, where's there an end to all these titles? And it always goes to extremes. Why do we have to do this? So it's just like reality and very reality and more reality and extreme reality and then ultimate reality. It's just another series of hierarchies. And the trouble with ultimate, there's no more place to go. It's supposed to be the end, the final, the truth, which is the end of all searching. And that's the problem with ultimate anything. It means you think you know and go no further. Ultimate reality is a beginning of dogma and bigotry. So number one, I want to abolish the word ultimate, because real reality, that's an oxymoron, isn't it? Oh, it's not oxymoron, it's just two words means the same. Real reality, you can't have false reality, I suppose. True reality, dinky-die reality, is always work in progress. It's never finished. And if you think it is finished, be really careful, because when you think you know, that's when you stop seeing. One of my favorite sayings is, never allow your learning, your knowledge, to stand in the way of truth. Because that's what happens to people. This is ultimate reality. This is what it says in the books. This is what Ajahn Brahm says. It must be true. It is not. So, instead, every idea and knowledge pushes you further along the path. But never think there's an ultimate reality. If you think it's ultimate, the end, then you always have arguments. You have dogma. You will stop searching, seeing, looking. One of the reasons I say this was I was going to the airport a week or two ago. I often go to the airport, and it's amazing just what you can actually see, just in ordinary life. Somebody asked me from Singapore some more fundraising. I don't know why they keep doing fundraising. They exploit me to the max, squeeze every drop out of me. But there's lots of drops left. That actually reminds me of the story. Do you know there was a pub here in Perth? There's a pub. It's in Northbridge, a rough area. Well, not really rough area, but sort of the nightclub area. And in that pub, they had a competition. The barman of that pub, the owner, he used to be an Olympic wrestler, and retired, so he got a pub. And he had a standing competition once he squeezed a lemon into a drink, if anybody could actually squeeze 5 drops out of that lemon, they'd have 3 drinks for the rest of the night. Because he was so tough, when he squeezed a lemon, you couldn't get anything else out. And they had these tough, bikie gang leaders. They tried it. There's huge guys, tats all over them. Squeeze the lemon, they couldn't get anything out after the ex-Olympic wrestler squeezed it. Sometimes had these bodybuilders like Arnie Schwarzenegger. Sometimes these professional boxers, weightlifters. They all tried. The footballers, Eagles, captains, and Fremantle Dockers. No one could actually squeeze any drops out of it until this one guy came in a suit one evening. A really thin, weak guy, maybe about 40, 50 years of age. He said, I want to try this. And the bar said, forget it, look at you, you've got no muscles on you, you won't be able to squeeze this out. He says, yes, I can. I can do this. And so he got the lemon and he started squeezing it and squeezing it. 1 drop came out, 2 drops came out, 5 drops came out. They couldn't believe it. How such a 50 or 60-year-old guy, I forget how old he is, could squeeze all these drops out of a lemon. I said, who the heck are you? And he said, I'm the treasurer of Australia. I'm about to do the budget. Mr. Morrison, I can squeeze drops out of you guys really easily. For those overseas, we're having a federal budget on Tuesday, I think. He's going to squeeze that lemon and get drops out which you never thought anyone else could do. But anyway, where we have the ultimate reality, sometimes we always think that there's an end to stuff and that truth can be somehow bottled and fixed. But anyway, where I was going before, there was this advertisement which I saw on, I'm going back even further, sorry, to this person over in Singapore, squeezing more drops out of me. They wanted more quotes, original quotes, for some more teddy bears to be auctioned. Oh, I've given so many books of quotes. No, they want new ones. So, one of my new quotes is traffic jams. Traffic jams are Buddha's way of making you slow down. We are so fast. So it makes us slow down in life, where other places just we get so fast. But on that way to the airport, I saw it. I think it was a advertisement for Monash University. Oh, I'm going to get in trouble for this. Monash University, I think it was Monash, it could have been mistaken, who said, when you think you have got the answers to everything, think again. Or something like that. And I think they should think again. Because this is a problem with knowledge. Yes, it's good to say you don't get an ultimate truth, but you don't take it further through thinking. To me, thinking is just like a field has been harvested, and you go over it trying to harvest the same field again. Innovation, new ideas, do not come through thinking over old stuff. That is just like your knowledge standing in the way of truth, innovation, seeing things deeper. To me, my experience and my advice to Monash University and all other places of so-called research, innovation, is don't go thinking about stuff. Be silent. In that field of silence, that is where new plants, things which haven't been seen before, haven't been discovered before, that's where they lie. Not in old stuff, but being still, silent. That's where we go further. Which now takes me on to the idea of reality. Why is it when people think ultimate reality, it's something you can write in a book, and the book then becomes a holy book, and then people worship the book, and they hardly ever read it anyway. But sometimes it's those words and language again which stop people seeing deeply. We worship ideas, and that is not the way to arrive at reality. Ideas are one step, or sometimes even more steps, removed from the real world. The reason I say this is because even recently, when I was talking about the path of meditation, I reminded myself of a saying, an insight which came up many years ago. The path of meditation is not a path of ideas. It's not an intellectual development, but it is a path of emotions, understanding feelings, understanding things like fear and how to transcend it. Peace is not an idea, it's an emotion. Even stillness, it's something you can feel. So hard to describe in language, which is one of the reasons why we have things like poetry, why we have things like music, why we have things like art, which evoke feelings, emotions, which sometimes, we just can't express, in language. Poets can sometimes get there. They can paint a picture with words, but what they evoke in you is something so much more than those sentences. And art, they can have some painting, some picture, and it just moves you. You see much deeper than the shapes and the colours. There's something there which you can relate to, which is a truth, an emotion, a feeling, which is far closer to reality than anything you can read in a book. And there's a saying with music, music can sometimes be so inspiring, it can make you cry. It can bring up these incredible, powerful truths inside of you. That's why we spend so much time developing and, you can say, enjoying these things. Not because of the sake of enjoyment, but because of the truth which is packaged inside that art. Reality is not a bunch of ideas. We don't live in ideas, we live in feelings. The things which most affect you in life, your sadness, your disappointment. Have you ever really felt that and understood that instead of always trying to get rid of it? It's one of the reasons why, whatever you experience in life, don't try to get rid of it. This was one of the experiences, great teachings which I got from a monk. I tell this to the monastics a lot. I maybe don't tell it enough to you guys, but this is core teachings. This was the lineage from which I come from. Ajahn Chah was my teacher, and his teacher was this monk called Ajahn Mun, and had many sort of teachers of the same age, years of Ajahn Chah. One of them was this monk called Mahabua, Ajahn Mahabua. And as a young monk, part of my training, being a monk, was spend 5 or 6 years, with your teacher, and after that, go and visit other teachers. Don't always go to the same teacher. Otherwise, you'll always end up hearing the same old jokes. Try other teachers as well, because real teachers will complement one another. You'll hear a different angle, a different perspective, and that is important, not to be so narrow-minded. So if there's any ever good teacher anywhere in Perth or beyond, please, Listen to them. They may not be telling everything correctly, but there's always something in there, something in the buffet of ideas or perspectives which you can use if you feel you like it. So I went off visiting many other famous teachers. It's a wonderful experience, not just being with one master, but going to other masters available in Thailand at that time. I had a wonderful time. Got some great stories, great perspectives. And when I was with this monk, Mahabua, he was a very famous monk. He was the late King of Thailand's teacher. But he never realized just how well I understood Thai at the time, because he decided to give a talk, and he'd said, this is for that Western monk who'd just come, which was me. Gave me a special talk. All the monks were there, and afterwards he asked for it to be translated. I didn't need that. I understood it perfectly. And obviously other people like that talk, because I've seen it published in little booklets which they have. And the core of that teaching was an experience Mahabua had, Ajahn Mahabua, when he was a student of Ajahn Chah's teacher, this guy called Ajahn Mun, this monk, great monk called Ajahn Mun. And it was when Ajahn Mahabua had the malaria fever. Now remember, these are forest monks living in the jungles of Thailand, northeast Thailand, north Thailand, even central Thailand, at a time when malaria was rife. It was just the forest monk's disease. Everybody got it. And you learn how to deal with it. Yeah, there was some herbal medicines, but a lot of times you just dealt with it. Just as an aside, I'm just going off on I love tangents, but this is Ajahn Chah told me how he overcame his malaria fever. He said he was still in just the first years of his monastery, Wat Pah Pong, where he settled down, where monks like me went to listen to his teachings. Right in the middle of a malaria fever, but he was meditating at the time. Meditating with a fever. He got no choice, You can't sort of lay down, well, yeah, he's still got the fever, it still really sort of aches and lots of joint pains and no energy, so he decided to meditate. And what he did was important, it's part of all this story. Instead of running away from it, you know what it's like when it's something which is hurting, which is life-threatening, we always want to escape, run away, get rid of it, find a place where we can live without this torturing us. But he decided to go in the opposite direction, go right into it. Face it and go right towards it. This is what we do in meditation. We don't go away from stuff, we always go into it. We don't go on to another thing, always into where we are now. It's always in, never on in meditation. So you may hear me say about stages of meditation, yeah, that's almost like, I call that landmarks, so you can find some idea of where you are. It's always going in. This stage, into the next stage, into the next stage, always going in. So he went so far in to the malaria fever that he came to like a spot like the eye in the middle of a cyclone, where it was really cool. That's how he described it. And around it was this like fire, really intense. He could feel the fire, but he was cool in the middle. He knew it was there. But he was in a quiet, calm, peaceful, cool spot right in the center. And he said it got hotter and hotter and hotter, but he always remained in that cool spot in the center. And it got so hot, it exploded. And that was the end of the malaria fever. Never had it again. Interesting. This is anecdote, obviously. No scientific evidence, because there was nobody to be there at the time. It wasn't in a laboratory, it was in a monastery. But I trust what he says and understand, just going deep into any problem, right inside of it. And that is a teaching which Ajahn Mun gave to this Ajahn Mahabua, who didn't meditate when he had his fever. It was a time for work. And this Ajahn Mahabua, he was one of the toughest monks. He was like Arnie Schwarzenegger in robes. Like, who was that guy, the Die Hard? Bruce Willis. Actually, Bruce Willis did have a bald head. So, there's a lot of similarities there, but really tough, real. So he decided, work period, he got up from his bed in the middle of a fever, sweating, got a broom and started sweeping like all the other monks. He was more powerful than malaria fever. And imagine that if you're in a hospital, you have a doctor and you see someone in the middle of a fever, get up and say, no, I'm going to wash the toilets. That's what, he was wanting to do. But fortunately, these teachers saw him and said, that is not Buddhism. That is not the way to enlightenment, to truth, to reality. Your job is not to fight the fever and defeat it. Your job is to understand it, learn from it, investigate it. And when I heard that from this monk, I thought, wow, now that is what reality is. We don't fight stuff. We learn from it, we investigate it, we go into it. So anyone who has, I'm going to go on in dangerous territory now, if you have depression, if you have anger, if you have guilt, understand it, investigate it, learn what actually is this. And that is where you find the reality of our world. These are not things which are somehow wrong. Somehow it's an affliction which you have to get rid of. It's not, it's something you learn from, something you grow from. It's not something you just try and escape from at all costs. Because when we have trying to escape from the problems of life, that's where we get so many of the addictions from, instead of learning from these things. Because all of these things are part of the reality of being a human being. It's not just the nice stuff, the joy, the happiness, the falling in love, the seeing the beautiful sunsets. It's also seeing sort of the dark clouds rolling in like I saw this morning. It's more than that. And this is actually where we learn what reality truly is. It's a feeling of life. So, one of the encouragements which I ask people, don't be afraid of feeling life, of feeling just what it's like, to lose someone you really love. What actually is grief? Feel it, understand it, learn from it. Why? Where does it come from? Feel the cold when you go outside this evening. Don't just bundle yourself up with scarves and hats. When people are on retreat, I really encourage them, please, go out and get wet. Do you remember what it was like when you were a kid? Splashing into puddles, soaking wet, your hair a mess. Why can't we do that these days? And get reality back. Feeling cold, feeling heat. It's not going to kill you. Don't stay out for too long and get pneumonia and sue the Buddhist Society. That's not what I mean. But get more alive. Because when we can actually feel and understand cold and heat, maybe then we can also understand disappointment, loss. We can actually feel it instead of trying to insulate ourselves from these things. We can actually feel the beautiful kindness. And also sometimes we get so tired, upset, we get angry. There was one word which the New Norcia monks said, which I thought, wow, this is a great angle which I can use in my talks, and now I'm going to use it. It's called hospitality. Because in those monastic traditions coming from Europe, that was an important part of their rules, to be hospitable. Any traveller who was passing by would be able to stay in their monastery in a time when there weren't hotels, there weren't places where people can go. So they gave hospitality to any traveller who happened to be passing by. And one of the monks said that hospitality is not just allowing somebody into your home, whoever they happen to be. It's allowing people into your heart, even people who have hurt you and disappointed you. This beautiful hospitality which, I use the word to open the door of your heart to people, even though they've hurt you. It's beautiful hospitality. Yeah, you're a bastard, but you can come in. Now that, I thought, is really beautiful stuff. A word which we can use. We can always find a place somewhere, even if it's in a cupboard, even if it's in the attic, which they usually put crazy people in, in novels by was it Jane Eyre or something, had somebody up in the attic, crazy person. But yeah, we can always find a place for them somewhere in our hearts. Maybe not close to where we live, because, we were a bit sort of ill at ease with them. Yeah, we can't be so close to them, but at least we can let them in somewhere, which is the beginnings of, this is the subject we were talking about, forgiveness. Finding a little corner, even if it's in the shed, or even like the word I used to know, whenever my grandfather, had an argument with my grandma, and she wouldn't talk to him. She said, "I'm in the doghouse today." And the doghouse, being in the doghouse was a kennel in the back of the yard, which, according to just the way of speaking in the place where I grew up in London, that's where, if you did something wrong, and then your wife sent you out, you had to sleep in the doghouse overnight. But you find some place for somebody, even if they've hurt you. That's the beginning of forgiveness, reconciliation. The beginning of giving hospitality, accepting the people who really are hard to accept somewhere, giving them hospitality, because that was their monastic rule. But I like taking that even further, forgiving even the unpleasantness of life, being hospitable to that as well. Giving them a place somewhere in your life. The loss of a loved one, the anger of your boss, the fact that sometimes people let you down. That is part of life. Give it hospitality, welcome it in. Not getting what you want. That also has a place in life. Many times, I've gone through I won't go through it here, when I ask people, anyone here never been sick before? No one puts their hands up, because every one of you in this room has been sick. And I go through this logical argument. If anyone here has never been sick in your life, that means there's something very weird about you. Something very wrong with you. You must be an alien or something. Because human beings get sick. And then the next part of the argument was, if that's the case, why do you say when you go to the doctor, "Doctor, there's something wrong with me, I'm sick"? The truth of the matter is, there's nothing wrong with being sick. There'd be something very wrong if you never got sick. If you never got sick, you'll be taken into the hospital and have experiments done on you. You'd be a medical anomaly, and people will try and do PhDs on you. Why does this person never get sick? You'd be weird. But everyone else, we get sick. But when we say there's something wrong with sickness, that is where the problem starts. The problem of, first of all, denial. I'm not sick. I'm just dead. so we don't go see the doctor in time, because we feel it's a stigmatized for being sick. Or number two is mental illness. The stigma with being depressed causes many people not to seek help when it's good time to seek help. And you all know that that's a huge thing in Australia. You know, seek help in time. There's nothing wrong with being depressed. Anything wrong with being angry? Why do we stigmatize angry? Other people can be angry, but not my husband. Not my wife. You're supposed to love me. Why are you angry at me for? We give hospitality to all the different ranges of emotions human beings can feel. We let it in so we can investigate it and learn from it and not stigmatize it and say it's wrong. Because this is the reality of our world which we're supposed to learn from, understand and grow from, not conquer and destroy. If you understand that, we understand what reality is. Because sometimes we think that reality is being happy ever after, finding our soulmate. You know, there was a woman who used to come and see me years ago, and it was just I shouldn't say a waste of time, but it was a waste of time. It's my reality. And she said, I know he's out there somewhere. I know my soulmate, the one meant for me. She was about 60, I think, at the time. Still hadn't found him. And I just kept on saying, he's not there. No, I know he's there somewhere, waiting for me somewhere, just haven't found him yet. That's not reality, that's living in the world what you want it to be. And that the wishful thinking, the fantasies, the Hollywood, or even better, the Walt Disneys, they do so well in the fantasies. Prince Charming and Cinderella... No, it wasn't Cinderella and Prince Charming, was it? It was a long time since I watched those things. Prince Charming and Sleeping Beauty. I don't know. I do know something about, the Seven Dwarfs. Seven Dwarfs, I remember them somewhere or another because I read about the Seven Dwarfs. They did a psychological assessment of the Seven Dwarfs. And you know that what they proved? That 6 out of 7 dwarves aren't happy. That's a terrible joke, isn't it? 6 out of 7 dwarves aren't happy. Because one of the dwarves was named Happy. Oh, crikey. Okay, another Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs joke. I'm going to get into big trouble with this. Fortunately, Nolamara is north of the river here, but some of you are just going to never come back to the Buddhist Society of West Australia again after this joke. You'll probably be cancelling your memberships after this joke. Snow White was making lunch for the 7 Dwarfs. And once she finished making the lunch, she took it to the mine. They were mining diamonds or whatever dwarfs do. And when she got to the entrance to the mine, she saw there'd been a collapse in the mine. Accident. There was rocks and dust all over the place. So she was really concerned for the dwarves. She said, "Are you okay in there?" There was silence. "Are you alive?" There was silence. So she tried another tack. She said, "Fremantle have just won the grand final." And one of the dwarves said, "Yay!" And she said, "Well, at least Dopey is alive." At least Dopey is alive. For those overseas, in Perth, AFL, Fremantle Dockers and the West Coast Eagles are always in competition. And poor old Freo have never won the grand final yet. So Snow White thought they would never win the grand final. So when she said, "Yay, Fremantle have won the grand final," Dopey said, "Yeah," because he was so dopey he thought it could be true. I explained the joke now. Now you can actually cancel your memberships on the Buddhist side of West Australia. It's only a joke, okay? Next time I'll say, Eagles have won the grand final. Anyway, just that's who I am. That's my reality. So anyway, you feel... Oh, two people already left. I'm sorry. The Fremantle are a great team. I love them. I apologise. Freo are great. I support them next time. I'll do some chanting for them. But the reality, going back to what I was supposed to be saying, the reality of Prince Charming and whatever it was, the lady, probably changes Cinderella, or is it Cinderella or Snow White? Snow White, whatever. They always ride off into the sunset, happy ever after. Of course that's not true. Reality, what is ultimate reality? Is that your life is a mixture of beautiful happiness and suffering, but you can't have one without the other. If you had just happiness, 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 you would take it for granted, which is what most of you do now. We're living in a beautiful world. Can you see it? No, because all we see is our problems. Remember the two bad bricks in the wall? Similarly, why is it we just see the faults? We don't see the beautiful bricks. Why do we keep focusing on just the mistakes in our partner instead of seeing their beauty? They're just a human being. Like 2 weddings today. I told the story twice. They both worked. It laughed. One of my followers over in Singapore, she's in her 60s, 70s now, I think. But she said when she got married in Singapore, her father took aside her husband to give him some son-in-law advice. And he said to him, "You probably think my daughter is beautiful. Oh yes, she's so gorgeous. Every time I look at her, I feel how lucky I am that she agreed to marry me. You think she's so charming. Yes, even just the way she picks her nose is so lovable." And stuff like that. And she said, that's what it's like when you're in love. Everything about your partner is absolutely so perfect. You feel so blessed and so lucky. But he said, remember this, son-in-law, in about 1 year, usually average 2 years, maybe a bit longer, maybe say average 2 years, you'll start to see the faults and defects in my daughter. But I want you to remember that when you see her faults and defects, they were there in the beginning. If she didn't have them to begin with, she'd have married someone much better than you, son-in-law. And I thought, how true that is. That's reality. So any of you going through a relationship and you get to that point in the relationship, you start to see the faults and defects in your partner. Remember, if they didn't have those faults and defects to begin with, you wouldn't be going out with them, would you? They'd have chosen someone much better than you, because you've got your faults and defects as well. Human beings, life with its faults and defects. And it's actually the faults and defects in another human being which actually makes them lovable. You know, the Thai people say, I actually used to speak really good Thai when I was in Thailand, but, you know, you're out of that culture, so you don't hear it every day. So sometimes when I speak Thai, I just make mistakes. And I said, well, maybe I should, go to some classes and just brush up my Thai. I said, no, because when I make mistakes, it's lovable. Nalak. And that's so true. When you make mistakes and say things in a strange, weird way, it makes it more lovable, more interesting. Perfection does not exist in this world. thoughts, when people pass wind, farts, that's reality. Mobile phones going off during the meditation, that's the real world. Doesn't matter how many signs we put up there, no matter how many times I say your mobile phone will be reincarnated as a parking meter, it doesn't work. Welcome to the real world. That, to me, is ultimate reality. Not something way out in the realm of ideas and fantasies and dreams, which people argue about what's the real ultimate reality. To me, reality is something you feel, something which is part of your emotional world, something which you can actually touch, you can experience right here, right now in this world. That is what we have to deal with. That is what we understand and learn from. That is how we grow. We don't run away from it. We don't try and contain it in words and theories and philosophies, not even in religions. We understand it, we learn from it, we grow from it, and we find a place in our heart for all the realities of life. We're at peace with the world as it is, instead of thinking it should be something better. If you ever hope that Ajahn Brahma will give a Dharma talk without a stupid joke, you are not in the real world. Thank you for listening. Sadhu, sadhu. Okay, let's see what we've got over here. Okay, I'm going to be in trouble for something, probably. What we got this evening, see from here. Okay, we've got 4 questions. The first one is from a guy called Fife, Nat Fife. Why are you bagging the dockers? No, it's not from Nat Fife. I made that up. Apparently he's a captain, isn't he, of the Fremantle Dockers? Yeah, okay. No, we haven't got anything from that this evening. Are they playing tonight? I don't know anyway. Best of luck, mate. From Mauritius, from UK, from Poland, and from Colombia. Oh, it's nice. From Mauritius, how can one help someone who lives in total denial and is continuously living with delusions and hurting others and also blaming others? First of all, if they're hurting others, it's like having a contagious disease which can hurt others, so you have to have some quarantine. It's not quarantine, it's not for punishment, it's just to put barriers around people, fences so they can't hurt other people. So that's the first thing. If it's harming other people, hurting, like a contagious disease, we call it quarantine, not punishment. And while they're in quarantine, you've got to treat the disease. If they're in total denial, living with delusions and hurting others, again, it's fear. The fear of just facing up, to what's happening. And the more people can actually, instead of trying to escape from the problems of life, but learn from them, then that might help them. But sometimes, if they are in total denial, living with delusions, somehow or other, someone has to accept them. And I always say and the way I sort of visualize this is if you're going to help somebody, and if they're in a pit, a deep, dark hole, you have to go down into that hole with them, to feel them, to get close enough to them, to connect. But people say that's really dangerous, going to where they're living. But I always say when I go into the dark hole to meet with someone who's really in big trouble, I always take a ladder with me. So I can get out and I can bring them out as well. To feel them, not to judge them, not to stigmatize them, because each one of us feels sometimes so much pain that we're in denial, we can't handle it. But we need someone who can understand us, feel us, know us, not judge us, and then hopefully bring a ladder with you to take them out. from UK. Where is the karma warehouse? What and who decides which karma is due to right now from our stored karma? Is our lifespan dependent on our karma? It's not a warehouse of karma. It's just like the Google Cloud. Is that stored anywhere? Well, I don't know anyway. Probably is, but I don't know what I'm talking about as usual. But it's just, karma is just not stored anywhere. It's just like, I always call it action at a distance. So something happens in a different, what's a good explanation of this? It's quantum entanglement. That's a very good description of karma. Something happens to a particle in another part of the universe, and immediately it happens to another particle somewhere else. What goes across? Nothing goes across. There is no messenger. It just happens. Now that is a very good explanation, if you know what I'm talking about, which you probably don't, but you've heard of it before. Really good explanation of how things can happen without them being stored anywhere, without them being messaged anywhere, without anything going across. So karma is like entanglement with what you've done in your past. It's not stored anywhere. It just happens immediately. But the most interesting thing, who decides which karma is due to right now from our stored karma? And it is the obvious answer, you do. And this is weird, but I notice this in my own life. If I get into any negative mind state, I attract negative karma. If you're a very positive mind, a very kind mind, a very loving mind, all those great emotions, which, I'm only just scratching the surface, if that is what you have right now, you attract more of the same. Just like radio transmitters, you tune in to your bad karma if you're in a negative mind state. Good mind state, you tune into good karma. This is the resonance theory of karma. You resonate, and you bring up the good karma of the past. Because according to Buddhism, the amount of good karma you have is absolutely huge. They said if you give a banana to a monk or to a nun, you get millions of bananas back. You get whole bananas plantations back. But if you punch a monk on the nose, then you get nose ache for lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. So the thing is that one act is not just gets one result, it gets hundreds and thousands of results. So that means that every one of you got huge amounts of bad karma. And you've got huge amounts of good karma, inexhaustible. Why does bad karma happen? You have a choice. I say you've got so much good karma, you've got huge bank accounts of good karma. The trouble is, you've forgotten your PIN number. You can't access it. And I'm teaching you the PIN number. Just, open the door of your heart. Be kind. Give hospitality to all the experience of your life. Find a place for them somewhere in your heart. That is a PIN number. That starts attracting really lovely good qualities to you. Is our lifespan dependent on our karma? No. You can always get extensions if you've got a good lawyer. And I'm a good lawyer, I know the tricks. From Poland, you mentioned we shouldn't escape from things, but how about abusive relations like between adult children and their aggressive parents? It's really sad we have abusive relationships these days, and where do they come from? People wanting so much from other people, not loving them for what they are. Parents just wanting their children to do really, really well in life, and end up abusing them, forcing them, pushing them, giving them a sense of lack of self-esteem. Look, even in my life, I did really, really, really well. I came from a poor home and I went to a really good school, a high school. And when I went to that high school, yeah, I was doing really well in O-levels, but I could do better. So even though I got 8 O-levels, I said, no, you can do better. So I did A-levels, yeah, you can do better. You know, did the scholarship exam to Cambridge, yeah, I got there, you can do better. And there I was a scholar at Cambridge University, theoretical physics. Come on, you can do better, that's not good enough. And I thought there's something really weird. Doesn't matter how well you do, you can always do better. That's toxic. Just like I always say that comedian, he committed suicide. What's his name again? Robin Williams. Yeah. Wow, he is such a great comedian. You know, as a person who likes comedy, you know, that's just that's one of my weaknesses as a monk. Just I like a good laugh. And I looked at him. You know, actually, this is absolutely true, that I gave a talk over in Melbourne a few years ago, and one of the people in the audience was a professional comedian who goes on TV. I forget what his name was now. He came up to me afterwards and he said, I think I can get you a job in the Melbourne Comedy Club. He actually offered me a job. So I could have become a comedian, but I said, no, I'll keep my day job as a monk. But there's Robin Williams, just the top of his profession. But he wasn't good enough. This is one of the terrible things of our world. People say we're never good enough, you can always do better. Be a better monk. Come on, be a better monk. Come on, be a better meditator. Oh, come on now. Be a better husband. Be a better wife. Be a better parent. No, you're good enough. This is where we get to the abusive relationships, always because people have been put down, demeaned, diminished, stigmatized, not good enough. This is the result of that. So to stop abusive relationships in the future, please tell all the people you know that they're good enough. The door of your heart's open to them. So especially your kids. Yeah, they may not get, to go to university and become doctors, but they're good enough. So don't push them. And then we get abusive relationship. We expect so much of our partners. You go out with somebody, you expect them to be like Brad Pitt, Anthony. There's only people I know. So obviously it must be younger stars, which you would aim to be. Always to be kind, always to be the perfect partner. They don't exist. The one you've got is good enough. And I always say, if you care for them instead of trying to cure them, caring, not curing, then they blossom. Isn't that what you want? To be cared for, to be respected, to be understood. Sometimes you're in a really, really bad mood. You throw things around. But that's not really who you are. You're just going through something. Understand and let it go and forgive. And that means that we don't have to have an abusive relationship. But if there is something, of course you have to escape, you have to quarantine, because it doesn't really help anyone just to stay there and sit there. I always say to love the tiger, but at a distance. You can still get out of range. And last thing from Colombia. When we are confronted with challenging decisions, how can we best learn to distinguish when our decisions are coming from wisdom instead of our selfishness and pride? It's actually this good. This is the 4 reasons you should never make decisions when it's from selfishness, when it's from ill will, when it's from stupidity. So get to find out what's possible. And lastly, and this was the one which, when I heard the Buddha pointed out, watch out for this one when you make a decision. Never make a decision out of fear. So much of our decision making is done out of fear. What other people will say about us. What if they don't like it? What if they don't laugh at my joke? What if they don't like the talk? What if I don't do well at school? What if I go and want to sort of ask somebody out? What if they reject me? That's all fear. Never do that. So those 4 things, almost like a checklist. Am I acting out of personal desire? What's in it for me? Am I acting out of anger, ill will, trying to hurt somebody? Am I acting out of stupidity? Do I really know what's going on, what the options are? And lastly, out of fear. If any one of those ones, just wait for a while. Make the decision later when those things aren't here. And the last thing with decisions, yeah, they're challenging, but it doesn't really matter what decision you make. Should I marry this guy or another guy? They're all the same. It doesn't matter. If you haven't found that out yet, you will do one day. It's not the decision. Should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I? People waste so much energy in making decisions that once they made the decision, they've got no energy left. For me, running a monastery, whatever, I just make the decision. I don't worry about it. Left, right, doesn't matter. What matters is what you do after you've made the decision. If you decide this is the person you're going to commit with in life, make it work. Put the energy not into which decisions you should make, the energy goes into after you've made the decision. Make it work. Whatever role you have in life, whatever the trajectory, where you want to live, once you're here, make it work. That's where the energy goes. And it's amazing, you can make anything work. Just about. So, there we go. Thank you for listening. It's 9 o'clock now. I'm supposed to finish earlier, but you got an extra stuff out of me. We don't charge for overtime here, although I should really put in an extra overtime bill for the BSWA, but I will just waive it this time, Secretary. So thank you for listening today, and see you all maybe tomorrow for the meditation, or for the Sunday, the Wesak. Those of you who still need more good karma, remember double or triple good karma on Sunday for you. Come and help out. We're a community, we help each other, and that's wonderful to do that. So now we pay respects to Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Sawakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sangham Namami.